I spent the last 6 months reverse engineering the playbooks of over 1,000 different coaches. And what I discovered is probably going to piss off every single guru out there selling you their secret strategy. Because there is a formula, but it's the exact opposite of what everyone else is teaching. Here's what actually happened when I stopped chasing vanity metrics and I started following the 5 core principles that the top 1% are doing differently. I immediately started hitting $35,000 months with less than 2,000 followers. And before you think that I'm just some special case, I've also helped dozens of other coaches implement these same strategies and principles, and they've gotten similar results, if not better. So I'm going to break down all 5 principles, give you the exact strategies that I personally use, and I'll even show you how one of my clients used principle number 4 to go from zero to closing $30,000 clients in 90 days, even on a brand new offer. By the way, my name's Jay, and I break down strategies like this every single week in my private community. It's a small, tight-knit group, so I personally answer every single question, and I review every single member's business to make sure they're hitting their income goals. It's going paid after we hit 100 members, so go ahead and grab your spot now while it's still free. You're going to get access to over $10,000 worth of coaching and resources, including my personal playbooks, live workshops, and business analysis tools, all completely free for founding members. The link is in the description. All right, so let's get into the 5 core principles that the top 1% of coaches are actually following. So here's what nobody actually tells you about building wealth at scale when you have an education or an info product business. The top 1% are not selling their time. They're selling their thinking. And there's a huge distinction between the two. See, most people think that they have a coaching business, but that's completely wrong because you are in the mental architecture business. When someone pays $5,000 for coaching or for a strategy call, they're not buying your time, right? They're buying your mental models, your frameworks, and the decision trees that live inside of your head. And the problem is that most coaches never actually extract this information from their minds, and they never learn how to turn their brain into a scalable asset. So the more that you can systematize your thinking, the more profitable you will become, and the less you have to trade your time for money. See, the top 1% have reverse engineered their thinking and their genius, and they've turned it into products. Dan Koh has 2-Hour Writer. Myron Golden has Mastery Bootcamp. Russell Brunson has ClickFunnels. Alex Hormozi has School, which of course he didn't create, but his intellectual property is completely ingrained into School. So instead of selling access, they're selling a productized version of their intellectual property for the masses. And this is extremely important because if you care about your freedom, this becomes a non-negotiable. You don't want to be stuck on one-on-one calls for the rest of your life. You don't want to be stuck doing low-level work and making low-level money, or even worse, getting paid like an hourly rate for your work. You want to get paid what you're actually worth. To give you an example of how I've done this for myself, so you can think about ways that you can kind of systematize your intellectual property and scale your business profitably in the easiest way possible, right? Because the 2 core things that you want to think about are, how can I create a product that's so good people can get results without me, and it's not just like a traditional course or a fucking PDF file that you're sharing. What I created was Founder OS. And here's an example of how I did this for my own clients, right? It's a hybrid of a done-for-you product with education and the implementation baked into it. So beginner coaches or people that are making like 2 to 10K a month, but they don't know how to systemize. And so they're struggling to scale because they are the bottleneck in their business, right? There's only so many hours in a day. So we cover founder identity, niche and dream client clarity, signature offer design, proprietary framework creation, brand positioning and differentiation, and business infrastructure setup, right? So we're covering identity, clarity, design, framework, positioning, and infrastructure. Now what that does is all of the time that it would take for someone to build out their entire business A to Z, it condenses all of that from being like months, sometimes even years for most people, and it condenses it into a matter of hours or even just a couple days. And that's why this is so important, because people pay for speed and clarity, right? And so if I can take your problems and I can build a product that helps you warp time at lightning speed, you're going to pay for it because it makes sense. And so if you can systemize your thinking, this is going to make you a shit ton of money, especially when it's so good that people are getting results without you. The key takeaway here is your biggest competitive advantage isn't necessarily your experience. It's your ability to package that experience into a system that works without you, right? Think about it. Like, Tony Robbins doesn't personally transform every client, his frameworks do. Dan Code doesn't write content for everyone who purchased 2-Hour Writer, but Cortex can. Russell Brunson doesn't build funnels for every client, but ClickFunnels does. So what can you create that allows you to systemize your mind and transfer that knowledge and intellectual property to other people? Now, I know what you're thinking. This probably sounds complicated, right? But here's the thing. I pretty much cracked the code on what I call systematic simplicity. It's the art of taking complex ideas and distilling it into dead simple, repeatable steps that get consistent results every time for your clients. At a very, very high level, like all you're doing is outlining your process step by step. You're creating repeatable steps that consistently get results, and you've tested and measured those results. And then you automate the system into a unique method using AI. That's what I've done. That's what I help my clients do. And it's super, super simple. And it's incredibly powerful to see the results that this process is getting for my clients. So the key point here is stop selling your time and start selling your mind. Now, here's where most people completely fuck it up, because they think that just like having this system is good enough, but it's not. If nobody understands what problem you actually solve, then your system is worthless. Which brings me to principle number 2. The second thing that the top 1% are doing differently is they obsess over message market match, right? So what does this actually mean? They don't just know like who they help. They know the exact words their prospects are using when it's 2 a.m. and they're lying awake in bed stressing about their problems, right? So at the core of it, we're not just talking about knowing exactly who you help and how you help them, or like what the pain is that you solve, but why it matters to them emotionally at multiple different layers. So that when you're writing emails, when you're creating products, you're only communicating to the exact right person that is meant for your offer. There are 3 core layers of messaging. So the top 1% have really mastered speaking to all 4 psychological drivers that are at the core of every human being on earth, right? So the first is the surface level. This is what they say out loud. So for my target audience, that would be something like, I need more clients, right? But you want to hit the core of the emotional levels as well. So this is what they feel inside. I'm exhausted. I'm trading time for money. I'm tired, right? And then at the identity level, this is more about who they want to become, right? So my clients would say they want to be financially free and respected in their niche. They want to be seen as the go-to expert. They don't want to sacrifice freedom just for success. When you get this right, your prospects start to think like, holy shit, this person is literally reading my mind. They don't just understand your message, they feel understood by your message. And that is a very distinct difference. That's the difference between getting ignored and getting paid. Having extremely clear messaging that only connects with the exact right person for your offer. So the easiest way that I can break this down for you in a logical pattern that you can then take away from this video is there is a messaging spectrum, right? There are 2 sides of this coin. The first is things that are happening right now in the present, and then there are things that they want in the future, all right? So we have frustrations. What is happening right now that they hate? And what are their fears? What is scaring them right now in their current situation that they don't want to become a reality? And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have wants and aspirations. Wants are what they want right now, and aspirations are what they're dreaming of in the future. So if you can understand both the present frustrations and wants, as well as the future fears and aspirations of your target audience deeply. And I'm not talking about like, I want to be rich. I'm talking about what are the drivers behind making more money? Is it to be able to spend more time with their family? Is it to be able to travel the world and do whatever the hell they want and never have to worry about money again? Like, what are those things for your target audience, and how can you layer them into everything that you do in the way that you communicate with people, how you create content, how you send out emails, everything. All right, now let's hop into principle number 3. If you're someone that's maybe generating traffic or you're getting views on your videos, but people aren't actually converting, this is probably the reason why. So the top 1% is not just purely focused on getting attention, right? Like running ads. What they're doing differently is they're mastering middle of funnel content instead of virality content. So what does this mean? In order for you to understand why middle of funnel content is important, you need to understand buyer purchase behavior. Right? So there are 2 different categories in which buyers make decisions. This is number 1. If you are selling a product that's say less than $1,000, this is considered an impulse buy. What that means is that people don't need to sit here and spend weeks or months just determining whether or not they want to buy your product, right? There's a low consideration factor, it's a low price, and 1 to 2 quick touch points can help someone make a decision fast, right? Because there's low risk and minimal trust is needed. However, when you're over here selling a high ticket product, it is a considered purchase if it's over $1,000, which means high trust is required, higher investment, and multiple exposures because it's a high risk and a longer decision-making cycle. Deep trust is required. And so if you don't master middle of funnel content, this is where you're going to lose conversions because people won't just watch one video of yours and decide they want to work with you. All right. To go a little bit deeper on this, Google did some research on buyer decision making, and they found that people that are selling higher ticket products, on average, buyers need to spend 7 hours over 11 different touch points and across 4 different platforms before they're willing to invest in a high ticket service. So what that means for you is that you must master middle of funnel content because middle of funnel content is what creates a trust bridge. All right. There are really 3 different layers to your marketing. The first is top of funnel content. This is purely just to get attention on your brand, right? This is just so that like you go from being unknown to known in your industry or known in your market so that people can actually discover what you have to sell in the first place. All right. The second is middle funnel content, which we're focused on, which is the trust bridge, right? This takes you from attention to building trust to actually helping people make buying decisions for your product. And your bottom of funnel content is really the trigger that takes them from having that trust to then becoming a client. And so if you focus more attention on your middle of funnel content, you will convert more people at bottom of funnel. So your core focus should really be on moving prospects from maybe to yes with content that educates and bridges the trust gap. All right. So let's talk about what middle of funnel content actually is. There are several different types of middle of funnel content, but just to break this down at a high level, it's educational deep dives. It could be case studies and proof. It could be objection handling. So if someone has limiting beliefs about why your product won't work for them, then you can handle any objections within your content. It could be behind the scenes processes or client transformation. So for example, I have a breakdown of the 20K a month funnel here. And that's what I would consider middle funnel content for myself. I also have a client case study and interviews that I've been creating that I post on my YouTube channel. Those aren't going to be the types of content that get a ton of views, and that's by nature, that's intentional. However, the people that are considering buying from you are going to go to these things and watch them because they want to know if you actually have the expertise and if you're actually getting results for your clients. So that's why these are super critically important, even though they don't get a lot of views. The views that they get are the important ones. So I say all that to say trust is the currency that pays 10x dividends. If you can simply master your middle funnel content, you will see a lot more conversions across the board. All right, so principle number 4 is a mistake that I see a lot of people making when they're stuck in that 2 to 5K range. And it is literally costing you money every single month if you're doing this. So the difference from the top 1% making all the money and those that are stuck between 2 to 5K a month is oftentimes the problem that they're solving isn't urgent enough, high stakes enough, or it's not a quantifiable problem, right? Because most coaches are selling really abstract outcomes like confidence or clarity. And the people that are making the most are selling very specific, measurable transformations. And that makes a huge difference from a buyer's perspective, right? So we want to get away from using vague outcomes like more confidence in meetings or improving your morning routine or feeling more organized, basic stuff like that. And we want to get over to the side of solving high stakes problems that need to be solved urgently. Save your marriage before it's too late. Fix your health before it gets worse. Fix your ads before you continue burning money and your business goes under. So prospects instantly see the value and urgency. Urgency, most importantly. All right, so a perfect example of this is one of my clients wanted to help creators grow their personal brands or grow their audiences. And that's not terrible, but it's a low stakes problem to solve. So we repositioned him to help $1 million product businesses scale using TikTok Shop. And the promise of his offer was that he would grow their business by 1 million in revenue purely using organic content. And the result was very clear. He started closing $30,000 clients immediately, and nothing changed other than his offer and how it was positioned, right? It was the same person, same skills, but now he's solving a problem that has real consequences for business owners because their revenue is plateauing. Using purely organic content that's virtually free to create, that's a huge problem to solve, especially for people making over $1 million a year. So they're easily willing to pay that amount of money because the return on investment is so great that it's just a no-brainer. key point here is people don't invest high ticket for vague improvement. They buy certainty, speed, and clarity. Now, this next principle is super simple, but it took me from making 5 to 10K a month to hitting $30,000 months. The difference between most people versus the top 1% is that they are creating compounding pipelines. So what does that mean? That means that they're focused on the long game when it comes to lead generation. The top 1% doesn't just rely on sporadic outreach or just hoping that their content goes viral so they make some money. These people are playing the game differently because they understand that their pipeline is literally the lifeline of their business. Most people tend to treat lead generation as optional. So they'll create content and post when they feel like it, or they'll do outreach when they finally get desperate to make some money, or they'll try to simply rely on referrals if that's been working for them. But the top 1% are doing the exact opposite, right? They've mastered creating a continuous flow of leads through lead generation events. Now, there are so many different types of lead generation events. I'm not going to list them all here, but some are paid ads for lead capture, workshops. Organic content is, of course, one. Low ticket products with ads, webinars, challenges, lead magnets with mini chat automations. Like, there are so many different types of lead generation events that you can use and create. However, it's about choosing the right option for you, because not everyone wants to run webinars. Not everyone wants to do challenges, right? Especially because not every business is suited for these things. So it's very niche specific on which one you should actually use. However, if you think about Russell Brunson, he has Funnel Hacking Live. Myron Golden does the Make More Offers Challenge. I have a workshop called Content to Clients that I run, and that continuously generates leads. And even though I have a super tiny following, because I'm running these lead generation events behind the scenes, this is how I'm continuously bringing in clients to my business. And my middle of funnel content, like we talked about in the other stage, is also nurturing the people that come in from these workshops. And eventually, because they've spent so much time hanging out with me, they trust me enough to become a client. And what most people don't notice is that lead generation events create a continuous flow of leads that builds momentum over time. So just so you can understand and visualize the compounding effect and how this actually works over time, what happens is month 1, let's say you get 1 lead in the first 30 days. All right. And then month 2, let's say you get 2 leads. Now you have 3 in 30 days. And then month 3, you get 3 more. Now these are super low numbers, but I just want to keep it simple. So let's say by month 3, you've collected a total of 6 leads. Now the people that came in 30 days ago, by month 3, their pain level has increased. So when they found you, they were actively trying to solve a problem that would resolve the pain that they had. And now you've been nurturing them for 90 days. Since they first dropped into your ecosystem, you've been nurturing them the entire time, sending out emails or creating content, and they're consuming your content. And while this is happening, the pain that they have is increasing every single day. So while their pain level may have been a 4 when they found you, now over the course of the next 3 months, now it's at a level 7 or a level 8, right? And once their pain becomes unbearable, you're going to be there when the time is right. You're going to be the one that has been nurturing them, that they feel connected to enough to actually work with you. So you may not see this happen in month 1 or even month 2. You may not even see it in month 3 or 4. But eventually, as the pain increases, conversions will start to happen. And what happens is these numbers just start to continuously grow over time as you're creating these lead generation events. And so month 1 versus month 6, you have a full pipeline of people that are just ready to burst because the pain is starting to become unbearable. And they finally realize, okay, now I need some help. It's time to pay for it. And so your only job here is simply just to be there when the time is right, when the time is now for them, right? So today's follower could be your client 18 months from now or 2 months from now, but only if you stay in their world long enough to be there when the time is right. And that is what I cannot stress enough, because so many people stop their actions when it comes to lead generation. They start and stop, and they're not nurturing people consistently, and they're not understanding that this stuff is actually working behind the scenes. You just don't know it yet, because you haven't waited long enough and you haven't taken enough of the same continuous actions to get the results that you want. So this isn't building, right? And all you're trying to do is build that momentum. Now, I know I said I only had 5 core principles, but I'm feeling generous today, so I'm actually going to give you one more. And this one is something no one really talks about, but I promise if you implement this, it will literally change your life. So bonus number 6 is becoming a category leader. Now, one of the most critical things that separates the top 1% from everyone else is they actually become category leaders, right? So most coaches are focused on competing for scraps in a super crowded market, right? Category leaders are the ones that create their own lane. They name their process, they have a unique promise, and they make everyone else play catch up while they're the ones really leading the pack and the industry that they're in. They're the original creators of the paradigm, right? No one remembers the cover band out there that's singing Prince songs or Beatles songs. They remember the Beatles and they remember Prince. And the same goes for people that create categories of their own, right? So take Dan Koe. He's known for the one-person business model. And there are a million other people out there kind of touting those same principles, but Dan Koe is the only one that anybody remembers. Dan Koe is the one that has created a massive audience because of his category. Now take Iman Gadzhi. He's known for SMMA. Ali Abdaal is known for productivity and the part-time creator economy on YouTube. And I'm building the category for systemized freedom first coaching and consulting, which is what I call high leverage consulting. That helps educators, experts, and coaches leverage AI to create massive transformations for their clients without wasting all their time coaching. So the core principle here that you want to understand and take away from this is category ownership creates uncontested market space, which means you are not going to have 1,001 competitors because you create a lane of your own that no one else can compete with. And that is the goal when it comes to marketing, right? Become known for one topic, one worldview, and one idea. And if you notice, each of these people are known for one concept, one core idea, and one business model, because category leaders don't compete, they create. Now, you can continue to run your business the way that you've been running it. And of course, you already know what results you've been getting with that. Or you can choose to do things differently and take a more systematic and proven approach to hitting your income goals. So if you're serious about scaling your business and you want to see how these principles can actually work for you, just DM me the word coach on Instagram and let's talk. See you in the next one.